All right, everyone. We start off today, of course, with the Kamala Harris interview on CNN. I forced myself to actually watch it this morning. I got an early start. I don't really have words to describe what I just saw. Link in the description. You can go to Trump War Room and get a brief readout of it with some of the choice clips. There is a lot to criticize here. If you have a train wreck interview, and that's exactly what this was, we're not going to mince words here. When you're on a network that is literally partnered with the administration you're part of, with a sympathetic journalist who's asking you the questions, with your security blanket, Tim Walz, next to you, when you're getting softball questions mainly, and it's all been edited, and they're not even going to release the full transcript, then you ain't going nowhere. I'm sorry, but this boosts Trump's chances immensely. This was a train wreck interview. Kamala Harris was unable to answer even basic bitch questions with regards to basic policy. For example, she's asked specifically, this is in the first couple minutes of the interview, so-called, what would you do on day one? She launches off into a monologue speaking in soaring terms about American greatness and expanding the middle class and stuff like that, but she doesn't even mention a single policy. She doesn't discuss it until she's prompted to. She has to be pressed by a sympathetic journalist on a sympathetic network to actually answer the fucking question. She has done this, by the way, repeatedly. When she's asked about basic policy positions, so what are your for instance, here would be a lead-in. I'm the journalist, and I'm going to answer rhetorically in the nature of Kamala. Mrs. Harris, what are your thoughts on broad tax cuts for the middle class? Well, I think that the middle class is very, very important for the United States. It's the bread and butter of our nation. We need to do more to help the middle class, or something like that. It'd be vacuous. It's just sloganeering. It's sound in the fury mode. She's not saying anything meaningful. There's no actual policy that's suggested. When she's pressed on policy and has to talk about it, then she flip-flops. For example, on fracking. It's sort of like John Kerry. I was for the war before I was against it, or something like that. She's going to get swift-boated, by the way, by the Trump team. She couldn't answer basic policy questions. And then Tim Walz had to step in at times in order to defend her from, anything adversarial, which there was none. This was a train wreck interview. And keep in mind, it was also heavily edited too, and without the transcript, we don't know exactly what they edited out. I think there's a reason that CNN is refusing to release the transcript of the full interview. Link in the description. Not archived, that's to the Trump War Room. You can check that out. There are some clips from it, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. I'm going to binge watch the whole thing later, probably just for shits and giggles. It's laughable. It's pathetic. No wonder Kamala Harris doesn't want to come out in public and speak, because she doesn't say anything of meaning. I didn't get anything about many of her policy positions. It was just, well, Biden said this once, and I think the middle class is great, and hail America, basically. It's almost like a Bush speech when you think about it. There were no real policy proposals that were made other than the flip-flop on fracking anyway, so it wasn't even worth watching. So I don't know if I can recommend you bother. It's kind of a waste of time, which was predictable. All of this, it was worse than I predicted, actually. I think I underestimated Kamala Harris's stupidity and underestimated her rhetorical lack of vigor, actually, in the end. Tim Walz, meanwhile, is reasonably well-spoken. He's capable of giving a speech and stuff like that. He's coherent. But again, there's really no fleshed-out policy that's actually there. I don't know where Kamala Harris stands on fracking at this point. Is she for it or against it? Or is it both? It's basically she wants to be for and against it so that everyone will vote for her if they care about the issue. It's kind of a side issue at this point because fracking ain't going nowhere, but yeah, I mean, I don't know where she stands on it. She said she hated it, then she said it's fine, then she said, well, we'll curb it a little bit. I don't know which policy position she's going to take on it. if in office. I suspect she would be a hardliner. I suspect that she would go with the environmental lobby or something like that. This was a painful interview. It was painful to have to watch. And again, if you have, she obviously, the questions were obviously going to be given to her and Tim Walz beforehand. Captive network, sympathetic host, edited, and softball questions generally speaking. And you still manage to fuck it up. That does not necessarily show strategic strength. She's going to get cut to tatters in the debate with Trump, which may or may not actually happen. At the last minute, the Kamala Harris campaign was trying to change the rules, and the network decided to ignore them effectively. So we'll see if she even shows up. That would show weakness if she doesn't. I think it'd be better to show up and get cut to tatters on stage with Trump than to not show up at all. It would be strategically intelligent to show up. Plus, it would help content creators like me, because I can live react to the debate, put a link out for people in the description, and they can follow along. I suspect that that'll be a shit show. I mean, again, if under these exceptionally favorable conditions, you perform this poorly, and the only thing that you can do is sloganeering and id poll, it's going to be difficult to debate. That's going to be difficult. I wonder why the Kamala Harris campaign didn't decide to agree to 3 debates. I don't think that it's any mystery anymore. I mean, yeah, watching it, I'm like, I can't even believe what I'm seeing some of the time. It was a complete freak show. So this is worse than Biden's performance during the debate with Trump that he had. This is arguably worse. It's really that bad. If you haven't seen it, I mean, again, if you want to get bulimia, then just watch this fluff piece. Even under fluff circumstances, you can't prevail. Kamala Harris is simply an exceptionally weak candidate, a very, very poor public speaker, with almost no personality whatsoever other than outright psychopathy, and can't answer basic questions. I'll tell you why this doesn't do terrible amounts of damage, though, to her campaign. The average person, especially a liberal individual, is taken in by slogans and empty promises. They're not really taken in by hard-hitting policy positions because they don't have the time to analyze them. So they don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of what specifically is going to be your tax policy and things like that, for example. What specifically would you do at the border? Well, I think that the border is very important, and I believe in defending the United States, but we got to be nice to people. It's vacuous. It's empty. Nothing of meaning was conveyed during virtually the entire interview. And then they parsed it down. Again, it was heavily edited, so we don't even know exactly what her answers were at some times. It was chopped and screwed, just as predictable. It doesn't surprise me in the least. Basically, she's trying to kick the can down the road, disappear as much as possible, not be in public, not answer questions, not answer any policy positions to keep it vacuous. That's the Kasich effect. If I don't have a policy, and you don't like my opponent's policy, you're more likely to vote for me. It's Hayden-Harris. Plus copycatting the homework Clinton style, basically. She's fused those two basic concepts together. She's taken Biden's 2020 strategy and combined it with Clinton's strategy from the early 1990s. And my hope is that she's not successful, of course, in these endeavors, because I can't imagine having Kamala Harris as president. I don't think would be good for the nation. I think that we would start at least one major war, probably more than one, possibly end up with World War III. I genuinely worry about that. And we'd have a chief diplomat who can't coherently communicate with other people. How is she supposed to conduct diplomacy? Look at the goddamn interview if you don't believe me. How is she supposed to go toe-to-toe with Vladimir Putin, for example? How are you supposed to corral Russia's actions? How the hell will you even talk to Zelensky? She'd probably alienate him too. She's the understudy of a campaign, of an administration that has already alienated the Polish and the Japanese, two of our closest allies. Well, she learned from the best, definitely. Jesus Christ. I'm watching this. I'm thinking, did I just have a mini stroke or something? Did I just have an ischemic attack like Biden clearly did? because I'm not even understanding what I'm hearing sometimes. Well, most of the time. That's about all. Peace out.